My name is Eduardo Sarabia. I am an artist. I grew up in Los Angeles and I've been living in Guadalajara for the last 20 years. There's an amazing art collector, Jose Noesuro, who owns a ceramic factory there. He saw my artwork at Miami Basel at the fair, and he looked me up and he called me and he invited me to Guadalajara to produce some work with him. And I thought I was only going to be there for 3 months, and
20 years
it's
later.
been 20 years.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I like the idea of painting and creating scenes that coincide with like my sculptures and the paintings that I make. And I've been working with this idea of these vines, and they've obviously evolved throughout the years.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make something that just brings life into like a white space or just like a white cube. In this case, the exterior of the showroom. Bring a little bit of color and life and feel like there's vines growing. When I was in Los Angeles growing up, these vine sceneries were very typical in my neighborhood. People would paint them outside their house, just like these kind of intricate vine designs. And it was mostly a way to get like gangs not to graffiti on their walls. Like they would just kind of like pre-paint something and people would paint on something that didn't have vines on it, or just some white space. So I kind of thought it was just an interesting way of taking the space for themselves before somebody else took it. And it was just like a really simple idea to do in the spaces where I was going to exhibit. Just kind of like take over the space before anything else and have these vines. They've obviously evolved and they're a little bit more intricate, they're a little bit more designed, but it's something that I just kind of like makes sense from my childhood that I like to do. I think having this connection with the local art scene is something that I enjoy as well. I collaborate a lot. I collaborate with artisans in Mexico to make some of the ceramics. Like the idea of collaboration and learning from them and sharing these experiences is something that I enjoy doing and taking advantage. Like it's my first time doing an exhibition in Oklahoma, and collaborating and getting kind of a sense of the local art scene is important.
What does it feel like to be in Oklahoma and doing your first exhibition?
I came to Oklahoma 15 years ago. My brother graduated from Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
But it was just like kind of a weekend graduation trip. But I've enjoyed being here. It's one of these cities where it's like a nice surprise. I had no expectations, and I was just mentioning all of like the amazing food scene, the culture that you kind of see. Working with Tang, kind of like he also kind of like took me around to see some of the street art, which is pretty incredible. I first arrived in Guadalajara 20 years ago, and it was a very small art scene, and so I've had like the honor to kind of watch it grow and expand. So coming to, being in a museum and seeing all the work from my peers from the city is pretty incredible. I know them all. We all kind of know each other's work. We see each other, socially a lot. We run into each other. So it's great to kind of like have the art kind of like dialogue between each other, which is amazing. I start with the idea. I like to draw. That's like the one thing that I love to do is draw. And I always feel that my most important medium is the narrative. Like I love storytelling. I love telling a story. And back then, working with ceramics just made so much sense. Telling stories, telling things experiences that I've been through, or things that I've read, or things that interest me through these vessels. It's something that's been done before, like the Greeks, talking about myths, battles, and just having this kind of contemporary twist to them of growing up. But I usually start with the idea and then kind of figure out what material best tells the story, and then kind of figure it out from there. These particular vases, I wanted to make. I've been working with ceramics and doing storytelling. My family's from the northern part of Mexico, and since I grew up in Los Angeles, like crossing the border back and forth as a kid was very impactful. And I like telling those stories, how things move between this kind of imaginary line and like the legality, illegality of things, and like the microeconomics that kind of creates. So I love this kind of storytelling, and it's so much rich with imagery that I've just kind of developed it throughout the years. But for these vases, I wanted to tell more personal stories about kind of like growing up and things that interested me as a child, like memories that triggers from like certain objects or certain experiences that I've had. And I made the vases my height, like my width, and just kind of like resembling me and having these things to tell these stories. So the vases are just full of just images of experiences, me, storytelling, memories. And we started with making a model. We made a model molds. So pulling the molds was even complicated, but the firing process was, like I think every time they would open the kiln, I'd get a call and it's just like 2 of them cracked. It's like, ah! The ones that completely didn't fall apart, I asked the factory dude, I was like, don't touch them, and went to the factory, and we were able to kind of like get them off the kiln. We sealed them with fiberglass inside so they just wouldn't fall apart. And there's a technique, a Japanese technique called kitsuki, which you kind of fill the cracks with 24 karat gold. So it just kind of embellishes, these fractures or, these scars, and makes them beautiful. And I felt like it kind of worked better. Also telling these stories, we all have like these scars, we all have these stories, that make us us. And it's important to kind of embellish them a bit and like share them and make them beautiful. This idea of how things move between borders and how they, and this life that's kind of, and this idea of storytelling that's created kind of starts with this idea of the box where like these ceramics kind of fit in perfectly and how things are being moved. These specifically kind of reference my childhood. I grew up next to like the Farmer John warehouse. Yeah, so it was just like, I just remember like the smells of like, from my neighborhood, from the Farmer John warehouse. Guamuchil is a tree. It's a city in Sinaloa where I remember we have a great aunt that lived there, and I remember like as a kid stopping in the city, and the tree gives these little seeds and you eat them, and I remember kind of liking them, and it's something kind of, it was just a memory from my childhood that I wanted to incorporate in the show. Yes. I like how the vases tell stories. They tell my story, but you looking at the images will tell you a story, maybe something you read about, something you lived through. So I like how the narratives can shift between viewers. And I do like to comment on like social issues or political issues as well, like things that are just impactful in my life and impactful in like in my family and my circle as well. If you keep investigating, you keep thinking about them, I feel like they just get deeper and deeper. Like, just like this one in particular, like tells a story of a buried treasure that my grandfather was searching for, and I kind of like took up that search in a weird way. But there's images of gold coins and like the history of gold in Mexico, and and they get kind of deeper with these like other kind of political messages. And it's just like, and that's kind of like why I like my work seems fun in a weird way. They're not comments on anything, but it's just kind of, it is what it is, and the stories that people pull from them is really interesting. I was just telling somebody yesterday, I think there's something special that's happening in Guadalajara. I think the creative scene is definitely influenced and got started by artists. And there's a whole section in the exhibition about how artists can change communities. And I really feel like Guadalajara is an interesting model for that. Like just everything that's happening, and just the energy and friendships and the light that's being shone on Guadalajara is amazing. So we get a lot of people visiting us, and kind of having that as a starting point to come and do an exhibition in Oklahoma is kind of amazing, how that triggers and how that could kind of get things started in other places. I think Mexico Mexico as a country is it has been very centralized in Mexico City and things that happen in like the capital, and having this kind of idea that things happen in other cities as well, or like peripheral cities like Guadalajara is kind of amazing. So getting Guadalajara kind of on the radar, bringing people to Guadalajara is cool.